Welcome, friend. I'm TK, your tour guide to the past, and you are listening to For the Love of History, the podcast where we talk about world history, women's history, and weird history. Listen, death is never funny, okay? But it's a little bit funny when you add toilets. Hear me out, okay? You know how tragedy is comedy? Wait, no. How tragedy is comedy plus time? No, that's not how it goes. Tragedy plus time is comedy. That's where we're trying to go, okay? It's the same concept here. Tragedy plus toilets equals comedy. And sometimes my comedy is very highbrow, very intellectual, very witty, okay? But sometimes I laugh until I cry at a well-timed fart, all right? This week, we are fully in our potty humor era, and I am okay with that. I mean, we have had the Lord of Baby Gravy, Sobek, as a canon event in this podcast's history for a very long time now. So I do believe that it is our Sobek given right to talk about poop and farts from time to time. But before we get our duty on and laugh our butts off at the very many potty jokes that I will be making over the next half hour, let us get to our housekeeping. So first on the docket is the app. We are still going strong on donations for the Love of History app. And if you haven't heard, if this is your first episode that you're listening to, wild one to start with. Very happy that you're here. But we are raising money to start an app for the Love of History that will be interactive, so you can listen to the episode and then after the episode answer some trivia questions. You can do some hydration check-ins. There will be some history scavenger hunts, and all of this will accumulate into history points for different prizes and fun things like that, and so much more. So if you want to become a beta tester and help us get the app off the ground and running, you can head to the show notes and the link will be right there, and you can donate as much as you can or want to, which is great. $1 is wonderful. Next order of business on the docket is Dad will be on the podcast in a few weeks. So this is pretty much, I think, your last week. Yes, your last week to get in questions for Dad for the extra special birthday episode, and for me too. I will also be on that episode. So if you have questions for History Dad or for me about anything, life, history, what it's like raising me, if you would like to know that information, you're more than welcome to ask. So just head on over to Instagram. There's going to be polls up there all the time. You can DM me, you can send an email, send a carrier pigeon, any way that you can get the questions to me. Next order of business is I wanted to remind the delicious donuts that we will be having a meet and greet in September. So I will be in Boise, Idaho, and I will also be in San Francisco. So I'll be in San Francisco on September 28th, and I will be in Boise, Idaho on September 14th. So if you want to join us for a little History BFF meet and greet, you can head down to the show notes. There is a form down there, and you can sign up, and then we'll get a head count, and more information will be sent to you straight to your email. So if you're interested in a History BFF meetup, go ahead and check that out. And finally, as always, you can head on over to the merch store. There's just a few more days to get the TED merch that you can see over here, the limited time design. And today I'm wearing the Kappa, who is a booty hole soul snatcher. We've done an episode on him, so if you haven't listened to that episode, you definitely should. And this sweater is super duper comfy, and it's one of my favorites to wear, and I thought it would only be appropriate that we have the booty hole snatcher himself here with us today, since we are talking about toilets. We're just on theme this season, and with that, I do believe all of our housekeeping is out of the way, but I do want to give a small little warning. If you have a sensitive little tum-tum, you might not want to eat or drink during this episode. Things are going to not get too graphic, but we are going to be talking about toilets from time to time. So maybe put the sandwich down. Maybe it's not time for that smoothie. Or you know what? Go crazy. I don't care what you do. I just want to give you a little warning. And with all of that out of the way, it is now time to grab a plunger, an air freshener of your choice, and maybe a candle and some matches because things are about to get stinky up in here. And let's get poo it. I'm sorry. Let's get to it, okay? Taking a tinkle, dropping the kids off at the pool, taking a whiz or a leak, releasing the Kraken. We use toilets every day. For many around the world, visiting the porcelain throne is the first thing that we do after rising from our slumber. But have you ever thought of the deep history that lays beneath your glorious buttocks every day? You probably have, because you're a delicious donut, and we think about weird things all the time. The toilets of old were simply rivers or streams or oceans. Pretty much any of body water would do. And if you were fancy, you would dig a hole. But the standing, non-nomadic toilet that we have come to know and love today had to go through many iterations before we could get to the bowel movement bliss that is the Japanese Toto washlet. And if you have not used a Japanese toilet yet, I feel so sorry for your little hiney, because it has yet to feel the heaven that is a Toto toilet. But I will digress. The history of the toilet started out pretty shitty, if we're being honest, and I will not apologize for my very terrible puns. About 5,000 or so years ago, the Mesopotamians and the Sumerians took a stab at the old commode in the 3000 BCEs and made some very interesting choices. They decided to create ceramic cylinders, stackable cylinder tubes that leaked all over the place to create the world's worst lava cake, basically. Because once it filled up, it would just out the sides. And I apologize for that sound effect. That was gross. Countries all over the world were, taking a stab at making their very own PooPoo palace. But things were not looking good in the Dookie department until we get to the Greeks, who made Tinkle Time a community activity when they created the Palace of Knossos between 200 and 1580 BCE. That's right, dear one. You could take a little poopy with 60 of your BFFs all at once using a communal sponge stick at the center of the room to clean up afterwards. But don't worry, they did have constantly flowing water that took out the little Tootsie Rolls of you and your friends. Unfortunately, things would get much worse before they got better for our dear friend, the porcelain god. In medieval England, people would just poop out of windows, which, the poor would poop out of things called potties, aka tiny windows close to the ground, and the rich, they were higher up, higher up in the air, and they did their business out of bespoke dookie windows called garderobe. And I need to describe to you what these things look like. So it was like a little closet just attached to the outside of the building. And then you sat down on this usually wooden plank with the hole cut in the center. And then your bum was just open to the air. There was nothing underneath. No pipe, no tube, no nothing. Sometimes there was like a wall, but a lot of times there was not. And so your number two would just fall to the ground. And sometimes you had a river that it would go into, or some body of water, but other times you didn't. It would just free fall to the ground. And I can only think right now, what if there is a breeze? What if there was a breeze? What happened then? Would you just have wayward dookies all over the place? And then what happens if you have to pee? What happens if you have to pee? Your pee just sprays on everything. Oh my God, I gotta take a break. I'm getting hot. Okay, I'm back. So Our beautiful flushable toilets were nowhere in sight. And for the last few hundred years, archaeologists thought that the first flushable toilet was invented in 1596 by Queen Elizabeth I's godson, who was also a poet. His name was Sir John Harrington, which is where we get the nickname John for the toilet. And then that same flushable toilet was later patented in 1775 by Alexander Cummings. But in 2023, in a discovery that would rock the toilet archaeology world, Chinese archaeologists found a flushable toilet from the Qing dynasty. According to researchers, the toilet may have been used between 300 and 400 BCE. China really had its shit together. And this discovery is super cool in more ways than one. It's awesome because yay for flushable toilets in the past. And also it's really cool to know that China also invented toilet paper. So they were really revolutionizing the bathroom experience. But going forward again to 1775, even after the toilet was patented, the toilet trouble was far from over. Finding a place for all of the forbidden fudge, how to treat the water that was used to carry it away, how to install pipes into houses and public places. It was a nightmare for decades. And of course, when we travel to the Victorian era, they always have to do the most. They always have to make something as mundane as a toilet into a nationwide fiasco. So I'm going to have you guess. Can you guess what toilet mishap they had? I'll give you a multiple choice, okay? A, were their toilets radioactive? B, did they have horrible leaking pipes? Or C, did they have exploding toilets? Okay, I'll give you some time. Time's up. What did you guess? Well, my delicious donut, if you guessed C, you get a brown star because the Victorians, very much sticking to their brand, had exploding toilets, which is a perfect way to segue into our topic today, historical toilet deaths. Again, I know death is nothing to laugh at, but if we don't laugh, we will cry. And I do think it is important to find humor in the ridiculous. The list of notable PooPoo Palace deaths is incredibly long. The wiki page for historical toilet deaths includes the likes of Elvis and even the rumored death of Catherine the Great. But all of these happened within the Chateau de Tinkle, and I was looking for deaths caused by toilets. After compiling my findings, crunching the numbers, and consulting with Kawa no Kami, the Shinto god of the toilet, I organized my list into two parts: assassinations and deaths caused directly by toilets. Also, I did say god of the toilet, and you'll have to stay to the end for the final thought, where I'm going to tell you about this toilet god. But I digress. So again, today we will be talking about assassinations and death by toilet. So without further ado, let us begin our tale of fecal matter fatalities. Assassinations are never good when they happen, and I am not one to compare tragic events. They're all terrible, but I do feel that assassinating someone in the privacy of their closet of constipation is the most horrendous way to do it. Like, come on, man, let them have a quick dookie before they shed this mortal coil, all right? It's the only decent thing to do. But when you are in the business of king killing, you gotta stabby when the time presents itself. One of my biggest fears as a child was something crawling up from within the toilet like a snake or a spider and murdering me like a kappa searching for a booty hole soul in the river. And back in the days of free-falling bowel movement windows, aka the garderobe, I hate saying this word, garderobe, like we spoke about earlier, that fear became one king's reality. In the 11th century, England was having a hard time. Wars were abundant and capable leaders were few and died very quickly. Ethelred the Unready, which is a horribly awful name, had been caught up in some wars with the invading Danes, aka the Vikings, and he had a hard time, and long story short, he was exiled and died, leaving the throne to his son, Edmund Ironside. Unlike his dad, Edmund seemed like a good, strong egg, but alas, he had to fight the Danish king Forkbeard's son, whose name was, and I can't, his name was Knut, C-N-U-T, which is, it's the same letters of another word. That's the only word I can think about when I say this poor fellow's name. Anyways, Knut and Edmund, they fought. And they had a tie, and Edmund briefly became king in 1016. And when I say briefly, I mean like 7 months. He was pretty much forced into making a treaty with Knut that said if one of them should die, their land would go to the other guy. It was the only way that he was going to be allowed to rule. And mysteriously, a few months after signing this treaty, Edmund succumbed to a severe case of the murders. There's a lot of speculation about his death, whether it was death by poisoning or a pointing thing. Some historians even say it was natural causes, and we have no definitive resources one way or another, but one chronicler, Henry of Huntingdon, had this to say about the whole ordeal. King Edmund was treacherously slain a few days afterwards. Thus, it happened one night, this great and powerful king, having occasion to retire to the house for receiving the calls of nature, the son of Edelman Edric, by his father's contrivance, concealed himself in the pit and stabbed the king twice from beneath with a sharp dagger, and leaving the weapon fixed in his bowels, made his escape. I apologize for my British accent. Also, hate that phrase, and I never want to hear fixed in his bowels ever again. But before we, freak out and start installing locking mechanisms and anti-assassin software in our futuristic Japanese toilets, I do have to tell you that this is highly speculated and debated because this account by our good pal Henry was written 100 years after the death of Edmund. We have no evidence to strongly suggest one way or another how Edmund died, but we do have a fun little piece of manuscript art from the mid-13th century showing dear Edmund with his pants down, sitting on the floating potty of death with a spear in a place where spears should not be, inside the body. This is by no means the smoking gun in the case of the murdered king, but it does throw in a little pizzazz in the historical record. Our next unfortunate soul to meet the Grim Reaper in the lavatory is Jaromir, the Duke of Bohemia. And I must tell you that dying in the toilet is not the worst thing to happen to this poor, unfortunate man. Jaromir had family troubles that would make Jerry Springer and Dr. Phil weep. This poor fella got his royal jewels snipped off, if you know what I mean, by his older brother. And then he was blinded by the Polish king and sent to jail for like 21 years, which sounds random, but it is very much not, because Jaromir killed his daughter's fiance and the fiance's entire family, and that family happened to be closely connected with the King of Poland. So I kind of get it. Over the next few decades, Jaromir would be thrown into jail again, this time by his own younger brother. And then after he relinquished all his power and consigned himself to a life of obscurity, the murder of the son-in-law would come back to haunt him, because this assassin literally caught him with his pants down in the Palazzo of PooPoo. According to the Chronicle Borimorum, written between 1119 and 1125, quote, he sent his executioner, and when the blind man was sitting on the toilet at night, emptying his stomach, he pierced him with a sharp spear from behind to the bowels of the abdomen. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it. Hate it so much. I am so glad that we moved past those medieval toilets, because I would have to go to the bathroom with my legs open like this and looking down while I go to the bathroom, because I would be afraid. I would be so afraid that somebody would do exactly that. They would climb up and kill me through the floating toilet. That would be horrible. That's the worst. Honestly, to me, that's the worst way to go. We're one of the, let's bring it down, TK. One of the worst ways to go. And I would love to know for you, what would be worse than that for you? Or is that it? Is that the peak awfulness? Okay. It's so gross. Anyways, our story continues, dear one. We're not even halfway done because Europe wasn't the only country with these forbidden fudge room assassins. Of course, Japan had to get in on the action and include ninjas, toilet ninjas, because Japan is extra, always extra. We are quite familiar here at For the Love of History with the Shogun Oda Nobunaga. We have an episode on him, but if you haven't listened to that one, no worries. All you need to know is that he was banana sandwich bonkers and ruthless as hell, and also attempted to unify Japan in the 1500s. It looked like he was going to be able to do it, and no one could stop him except Uesugi Kenshin. Uesugi Kenshin was known as the Dragon of Echigo Province in northern Japan. They were an incredible strategist and business person. They created prosperity and really improved the lives of the people in their fiefdom. But when Oda Nobunaga was getting a little squirrely and overthrew the government, Uesugi Kenshin was like, no, absolutely not. We got to get a team together and stop this madman because he's burning all the temples, burning all the shrines, killing a bunch of people. We cannot have it. So when this became known to Oda Nobunaga, supposedly Nobunaga hired an assassin, a shinobi, which means ninja, to take on a very dirty job. According to Dr. Kasim Zogari, I'm so sorry, I could not find anywhere that pronounced his name, Kacem space Zoughari, Zogari, I believe. He is a researcher on Japanese studies and holds a PhD in the history of Japanese classical martial arts. And according to him, the Oda clan sent a very famous shinobi, Ukefuni Jinai. Now, Ukefuni Jinai is a very interesting person in and of himself because he was very, very short. Reports say that he was under 3 feet tall. So he may have had dwarfism, but we don't know. But regardless of whether he had dwarfism or not, he was very small, which made him uniquely qualified for this assignment. Being very small in general is quite an advantage in the sneaky murder business because it allows you to go into very small spaces, and latrines are often very small spaces. So what did he do? Well, Ukefuni Jinai used the castle's sewage system to get into Kenshin's toilet and clung beneath the boards that covered the sewage pit in a most uncomfortable position. And when Kenshin sat on the toilet, Jinai wiped the inside of Kenshin's small intestine with the steel, then escaped through the sewer system. Kenshin didn't immediately die of his injuries, but passed away days later. However, this has been highly debated by scholars of Japanese history. Kenshin did have a history of stomach problems, and some say that he might have died from a stomach cancer. And admittedly, death by toilet ninja is a very embarrassing way to die, and maybe the death by stomach problems was just a cover-up for the very unceremonious way for such a magnificent daimyo to go out. And until some document is uncovered or we find some new evidence to point us to the truth, it's all up for speculation. Did he die of stomach problems? We don't know. Did he die of stomach problems inflicted by being stabbed in the chocolate starfish? Also, we don't know. But what we do know is that this isn't even the most scandalous conspiracy about Kenshin, because some think that he was secretly a woman. But that is a story for another day, friend. Apart from these 3 unfortunate souls that lost their lives in the Heine hut, many other historical figures have perished in these vulnerable places. But the list of people who have been personally victimized by a toilet, that is a whole other story. If you are a child of the 90s like myself, then Final Destination is the reason why you never drive behind a truck with logs on it. If you know, you know. And I must apologize in advance because I will be adding a new irrational fear to your list, dear one. So let's just jump right in to the Erfurt latrine disaster. And once again, I will remind you, my dear sweet friend, if you are eating, please put it down, like just for a moment. I beseech you, but I digress. In 1184, the German nobles were nobling, and a land dispute got a bit out of control. After much squabbling and stabbing, King Hendrik VI put on his best preschool teacher voice and said, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, friends. I need you to come to the city of Erfurt and talk this out, all right? It's circle time. According to the contemporary accounts by the Chronicles of St. Peter's Church, about 60 nobles, including the king, gathered in the church to have their circle time meeting. Everything was fine until the final member arrived and the meeting kicked off. Suddenly, the ground began to shake and the earth itself seemed to disappear from under the feet of the gathered men. And almost immediately, they were hit with a stench most foul. The stench of untold years of bowel movements and tinkle water. You see, the church that they were at had a nifty little thing called a latrine, which was just a floor with little seats above open holes that led down into a pit of poo. So imagine, if you will, the nobles are on like the second floor. The latrines are on the first floor, and the caca pit was in the basement. And Sobek only knows how often that thing was cleared out. And my guess is that it was not often enough because 5 noblemen drowned. They drowned. Oh, they drowned in it. And I have no clever segue right now. My flabbers are fully gasted. I don't know what to, they're beyond gasted. We are at a level 5 aghast right now. And all I can say is I am so sorry for those 5 men. I just can't even, I can't. I need to take a shower after this because it's so gross. So but we got to move on. I feel so bad for those men. It's so bad. It's so bad. Ugh. Okay, we got to move on. Anyways, this story is sensational all on its own, but as a good, terrible story often does, it got embellished over time with other authors like Johann Ludwig Gottfried, who wrote a little fanfic about the incident 300-ish years later, saying things like 100 noblemen were there and everyone was drowning in the poo, and just a bunch of other things like the king only survived because he stayed in the corner. Like it was just a bunch of malarkey, okay? This version of events was not accurate at all. And I never thought I would say this, but I am so thankful that only 5 people drowned in a giant pit of poo on that very, very shitty day. Ugh, that's horrible. And this is a side note. When I was doing research for this, I was watching videos to do research, and people were just talking about this so casually. How are people able to just be calm about this stuff? Like I am having a visceral reaction right now thinking about these 5 dudes drowning in excrement. Like what? What? On my bingo card of things that have a possibility of occurring in this world, that was not on the bingo card. And I don't understand how other people can just casually talk about this stuff without losing their freaking mind, like I'm losing it right now. But I am just gonna have to get over that. We're gonna have to move on to our final story of the day, my delicious little donut. Okay, another warning. If you have a fear of confined spaces and or you work on a submarine, I apologize in advance. Hopefully you don't work on a World War II submarine. Are any of those left? I don't know. Anyways, the year is 1945. World War II is raging. Germany decided to make a fancy new submarine called the U-1206. And one of its very special features was a deep water, high pressure toilet, which allowed sailors to drop a deuce 20,000 leagues under the sea, which is a vast improvement to the planks of wood that were jutting out over the raging ocean that they would have to pop a squat on and hope that a giant wave didn't come up and kiss their little hiney, or that they just fell off. Do you know when you're like in the bathroom, and maybe this is only a me thing, but when you're in the bathroom and you know there's somebody else there and you're like, I can't go to the bathroom. I can't go to the bathroom because I know somebody else is there. Can you imagine going to the bathroom on the deck of a submarine with your full butt just hanging out? There's all sorts of things in the ocean, and you're in front of everybody. What if you fall in? What if you fall in and then you're stuck in the ocean and you don't have pants? These are the things that I think about. I would just hold it. I would hold it forever. Anyways, so Germany makes this new submarine where you can poop in peace in the comfort of the submarine. But the problem with this high pressure toilet was it was extremely difficult to use. You had to open and close different pressure valves at specific times and in a special order. So it was really complicated. And it was so complicated that they had to have a whole dude whose job was to flush the toilet. And I don't know what God is in charge of writing the divine comedy and tragedy that is the story of the human race, but just 24 days before the end of World War II in Europe, on April 14th, 1945, the captain of the U-1206 decided to relieve himself while the submarine was submerged. And being confident that he was in fact a big boy and could use the big boy potty by himself and flush the toilet, proceeded to pull some levers and knobs. But to his dismay, nothing happened. And his little Hershey kisses were staring him in the face with defiance, saying, "We cannot be moved, good sir." So he called on the toilet master to come fix the issue. And this poor mechanic had been helping repair the engines of the submarine for a few nights because they were broken and they were stuck in enemy waters for the last few days. So he was sleepy and he didn't realize that the captain had already tried to torpedo his turds out of the submarine already. And he began the flushing sequence. But as soon as he opened a valve, PooPoo seawater came rushing into the bathroom and quickly flooded the floor with a lake of feces that looked like it came straight out of a layer of Dante's Inferno. But this situation would go from bad to what the fuck very quickly because the seawater got into the battery room, which caused a chemical reaction that made hydrogen and chlorine dioxide. And these, my delicious donut, are bad news for human lungs and for people who have the goal of living to a ripe old age without exploding, because hydrogen is explodey-sploding. With all of this horror unfolding, the captain decides that they are either going to die of chlorine dioxide inhalation or chance it by surfacing. He chooses the latter and almost immediately gets spotted by a plane and attacked. They abandoned the ship, and in the end, 4 men of the U-1206 would pass away from this shitty event, reminding us all that the potty is no laughing matter. Well, dear one, we have come to our final thought, and as promised, I will tell you about the god of the toilet. In Japan, there is a very widely observed practice of keeping the toilets clean and leaving offerings in the toilet. But it's not just going in there and like cleaning your toilet, because hopefully everyone cleans their toilet. It's more of the act of cleaning it as a way to worship, seems like a strong word, but leave an offering for the god of the toilet. Oftentimes, CEOs of big companies will clean their own bathrooms because of this belief in the god of the toilet that lives there. And you want to show the god of the toilet, hey, I am not too big for my britches. I will be cleaning the toilet. So where does this toilet god come from in the first place? Back in the day, human fudge was used as fertilizer. And as a very agricultural country, Japan used a lot of fertilizer, especially in the production of rice. And soon that link of going to the bathroom to get your naturally made fertilizer and the prosperity of your crops, so having a good harvest, was connected. And Shintoism is gonna Shinto, and thus a god was created. And this god can go by many names. There is the Kawayagami, which means river, kawa. Ya is like little hut or house, and then Gami is Kami, which means God. So we have the river hut god. And the reason that river is included in this name is because toilets, outhouses were often near rivers. So that's where we get it from. And then we also have other names like Toire no Kami-sama, which is more of a modern name for the god of the toilet. After English was introduced into Japan and the word toilet kind of came over to Japan, it was turned into Toire no Kami-sama. But before that, a lot of people used the word benjo-gami, and benjo is the old Japanese word for toilet. But whatever you call them, this tiny little god lives in your toilet, and you gotta knock before you go in to make sure that they can hide themselves before you go in and do your business. And there's lots of superstitions surrounding the god of the toilet. For example, the one that we talked about earlier, if you clean the toilet really well, lots of good things will come to you. And a more specific one is if you are a pregnant woman and you want to have an easy birth, you clean the toilet and you leave an offering for the toilet no Kami-sama. Because, again, of that link in the past with fertility. And if you're a farmer and you want some big, juicy crops, you go clean that toilet. You keep that toilet spick and span. There's also some really interesting superstitions and traditions surrounding the toilet, such as the ceremony called Sekichin Mairi. When babies are born in Japan, you often take them to different important places at different ages. So you have the Omiyamairi, I think is what it's called, when you take the baby to their first temple visit. Traditionally, it's when they're 3 months old, but often people will go a lot later, like 6 months old, because being a person who has just given birth to a baby 3 months ago, baby walking around in a temple is not the thing that you want to do. So a lot of people have moved it to 6 months old. And then you also have something called Shichigo-san, which is where you go to a shrine at the age of 3, 5, and 7. And there is also a toilet-related event that I don't believe is practiced anymore. Maybe out in the countryside, this might still be practiced, but it by no means common at all. And this practice is called, or this ceremony is called Sekichin Mairi. And it involves taking your 7-day-old baby to the toilet and showing them the toilet. Back in the day, before Japan had its toilet renaissance and gave us the absolutely amazing Toto toilet. Toilets in Japan were mostly holes in the ground, and that's it. There was no toilet on top like the Western toilets that we know. It was just a hole in the ground. Sometimes there was a plank on top, but a lot of times it was just a big gaping hole, and they were very dangerous to young children. So the idea was to take the child to this very dangerous place. And there's also some toilet related yokai that if you go over to Instagram, you can see the toilet related yokai. It'll be out the day that this episode comes out. And so you go and you do your little aisatsu, your greeting to the various demons and gods that live in the toilet. And you're like, hey, here's our new baby. Please don't eat our baby or take our baby from us. We really like them. And that's it. You just go do your little aisatsu, your little greeting to the toilet, and you leave an offering and you're done. So this reverence for the toilet has continued from the past into the present. About 10 years ago, I believe, a singer called Uemaru Kana wrote a song called Toire no Kami-sama. And it's a song about her grandmother teaching her how to properly clean the bathroom and telling her why it's important to clean the bathroom, because if you clean the bathroom, the Toire no Kami-sama will make you strong and smart and beautiful. And it's actually like, it has a silly name, but it's such a beautiful song. And every time I listen to it, it makes me cry because it's like, it's just a beautiful song about a little girl and her grandmother and their relationship with the toilet god. And I promise, it's like, it sounds so silly, but it's really touching and heartwarming. And I will leave a link to it in the show notes. And hopefully I should probably be able to find a version with English translation. So I really, honestly, go listen to that song because it's so good. I love it so much. There are a lot of other toilet gods around the world, and there's even a Buddhist one, but we are running out of time. This episode has already gone on for so long. So maybe we need to have a whole dedicated episode on just toilet gods and goddesses and various little demony yokai. So if you would like that, let me know. Well, dear one, that is all she wrote. That's it for today. I don't know how long this is going to be. I had to charge my camera in the middle of filming this because it's it's really long. I don't know how it's going to be after I edit it down. I'm sure editing TK will pop in here sometime and let you know. But thank you so much for joining us for this episode today. It's a little bit different than anything that we've done before. I hope that you liked this style. If you did, let me know. Let me know on Spotify question and answer. I can answer you back now, which is really, really cool. So if you want, go ahead, let me know what you thought of this or any episode on Spotify question and answer. Of course, leave a rating or a review or both, to be perfectly honest with you, because it really helps the algorithm know that this is a great podcast and other people should be listening to this podcast. And it's the best free 99 way to support For the Love of History. If you'd like to support the podcast in other ways, you can donate to the app. You can get some amazing merch. You can join us over on Patreon. There is lots of cool bonus spooky stuff over there. Patreon members are always the first to know anything. They get this episode before anybody else does. They get to pick a special Patreon only episode. We do so many cool things over there. So if you would like, you can go and join us over there. And just a quick reminder about the meetup form. If you'd like to join us in San Francisco or Boise, Idaho, go ahead and fill out the form below. And if you have a question for me or my dad for the extra super special birthday episode, please go ahead and send me those questions or look for the question box on Instagram or send me a DM because I always love hearing from you. And with that, I'm gonna go take a nap because this was a really long episode, but it was really fun. And I'm gonna drink some water and you should go take care of yourself too. Hey, if you need a nap, take a nap. Just take a nap. Just take a quick nap. It'll be great. Drink your water. I love you so much. I'll see you next week for a guest, an archaeologist, and we're going to talk about some really cool stuff. Okay, well, bye. Bye. Bye-bye. 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 Oh, Spaghetti, have you decided to join us? Have you decided to join us on this day? Oh, I'm missing one of my drinks. A very tragic event almost befell the historical community. I almost only had one drink. Who am I? Not the queen of the drink goblins, obviously. And now oh my god, it's literally everywhere. Oh, spaghetti! Spaghetti! Oh my god, coffee is so... Thank God for those goats, man. I don't know what I would do if those goats never started eating those coffee beans and then we just would never have coffee. And that is not a world that I want to live in. A coffeeless world? Disgusting. Oh no. We're all in this together. You're here to learn about the toilets. We're learning about toilets today. The delicious definition. Make the boys go crazy. No, Ted, don't leave. I went real in my face. I was snuggling waffles just a minute ago. Now I've got cat hair all over me. In a world with no coffee, one woman stands alone. Oh my god. Okay, we're here. We're ready. Here's my cue card. Scene 1. Click. So dumb. So stupid. It's fine to be a little dumb sometimes. Perfectly acceptable to be a little dumb sometimes. We're all, some of the smartest people I know are dumb. That's okay. This should not taste this good, but it does. Okay. One more drink. Okay. Oh, there was ice. Something fell. Oh. They'll never catch me with only one drink. Constantly have multiple. Okay. I'm a single lady, so I'm a single lady, so I'm a single lady. That was the thing, right? Can you believe in high school I used to know that whole dance? I used to know that whole dance in high school, and I would do it because I don't know if you know this about me, but I was a cheerleader in high school. I don't know if I give off cheerleader vibes, but I was. And then we used to do that dance quite frequently. Okay, enough. Focus. Focus, Fox. That's what I would tell my 4th graders. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, focus, Fox. Or concentration llama. Oh, I also did that, concentration llama. But we are being neither a focused fox or a concentration llama right now. So we need to get it together.